Okay, so you sent me some interesting stuff about emergency calls. I mean, it seems like one of those things everyone thinks they know, but then when you're in an actual crisis, uh,
Yeah, and a real emergency every second counts.
yeah,
And it's kind of wild how many people actually hesitate to call, even when they really need help.
you're right. There's this weird feeling like you don't want to bother them, like it's not a big enough deal or something.
Right, and that hesitation can be really dangerous. A 112 in Europe or 911 in the US, those numbers are your lifeline. They connect you to professionals who can size up the situation and get you the help you need fast.
It's kind of like you
Yeah,
wouldn't try to do surgery on yourself, right?
exactly.
You'd call a doctor.
Emergencies are the same way.
That's a good way to think about it. It helps overcome that hesitation. It's not about being worthy or anything. It's about getting the help you need when you need it.
Right, whether it's a medical thing or a fire or, something bad happening.
Exactly.
Plus, emergency services can handle all sorts of situations. Like I was reading about someone who called 112 because they found a lost kid. And that's the perfect use of the system. People worry about what's a real emergency. But in that situation, who else are you going to call? Police are trained to reunite lost kids and their families.
Right. It's like in those moments when you panic, your mind goes blank. Just knowing those three numbers, 112, is like a safety net.
It really is. And it's important to remember 112 is not for pranks. Every unnecessary call can slow down a response to a real emergency.
That makes me think about that story about those kids who kept calling 911 and making things up. And then a real emergency happened and it caused a huge mess.
Exactly. Those types of things happen more often than you'd think. It's crucial to emphasize this, especially to younger folks. These numbers are for serious stuff only.
It's almost like we're taught from day one to memorize them,
Yeah.
which is important. But maybe we also need to learn about the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah, finding that balance between knowing how to use them and using them responsibly is key. And when you do call, knowing what info to give the operator is super helpful.
So what are the most important things to tell them? Location, I imagine?
Location is absolutely vital. The more specific, the better. Like, imagine you're hiking somewhere remote and you need help. Knowing the trail name or landmarks or even GPS coordinates, that can make the difference.
Right. It's like those apps where you can get your location as 3 words.
Exactly. That's a great example of tech helping in emergencies. But even without those apps, details are key. Don't assume they can just track your phone.
That's a good point. I think people think because of GPS and stuff that emergency services just automatically know where you are.
Yeah, and while tech like AML is getting more common, it's not perfect. And what about landlines? No GPS there, so a clear address or good description is still important.
Okay, so location check. What else do you need to be ready to tell them when you call 112?
Well, after you tell them what's happening and where you are, be ready to answer their questions clearly. They might ask how many people are involved, if anyone's hurt, or specifics about the situation.
So they can get a good picture of what's going on.
Exactly. The more accurate the info they have, the better they can coordinate a response.
And like you said before, no messing around. Stay calm and answer honestly.
Absolutely. Panicking or giving them bad info just makes things harder. Remember, these operators are trained. They're there to help.
It's like a partnership then. You and the operator working together.
I like that.
Yeah?
Working together to get help where it's needed fast.
Okay, so we've talked about actually making the call and not treating it like a joke.
Yeah.
And giving your location and answering their questions. What else should people keep in mind?
Yeah, it's like anything else. There are definitely things people should keep in mind, like what happens if you accidentally hang up?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. What if you're like in a panic and you hit the wrong button or something?
Well, the most important thing is to call back immediately. And even if you don't hang up, stay on the line until they tell you it's okay to hang up.
Oh, right, because they might be giving you instructions or something while you're waiting.
Exactly. They could be walking you through first aid or telling you how to stay safe.
So basically just listen to them
Correct.
and do what they say.
Yep, they're the experts. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about some common mistakes people make. One of the biggest is calling for things that aren't actually emergencies. This really clogs up the system.
Like calling 911 because your pizza delivery is late.
Yeah, something like that. It sounds silly, but it happens.
So how do you know if something is a real emergency?
That's a good question. Basically ask yourself, is this a situation where someone's life or safety is in immediate danger? If the answer is yes, then call 11 or 911. But if it's something that can wait or be handled by a non-emergency number, then do that.
So like if a tree falls in your yard and no one's hurt, you wouldn't call 911.
Right. You'd call your city or a tree removal service.
That makes sense.
Another mistake is hanging up if you dial by accident.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that before.
It's important to stay on the line and just tell the operator it was a mistake.
So they don't think it's a real emergency and send someone out for no reason.
Exactly. It just saves everyone time and resources.
Okay, so it seems like the main takeaway is to know when to call. And then when you do call, to be clear about what's happening and where you are, and to listen to the operator.
That's a great summary. Knowing how to use 112 correctly can make a huge difference, especially with all the new technology like AML and the 112 app.
It's like having a safety net. Knowing help is just a phone call away.
Exactly. And the more people who know how to use it properly, the better.
I totally agree. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Anything else you want to add?
Just one thing. Please share this information with your friends and family. The more people we can educate about this, the safer our communities will be.
Absolutely. It's like it saying knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay safe out there.